G'day, friends and fans. Welcome back. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, and welcome to an interview with a show where I interview creative people. Today's guest is Vanita Shukla Hork, whom I've interviewed before. Welcome back, Vanita. It's nice to see you. Looking great. Last time we talked was back in October 23 when you launched your poetry blog and published 4 books. Tell us what you've done since then.
Well, good morning from Copenhagen, David, and thank you for having me back. We had great fun 2 years ago, and I'm really looking forward to today. So, yes, when we talked back in October 23, I had actually just recently published my fourth book, Soul. And after I did that, I realized I actually needed a break from, publishing new volumes because, I'd launched my blog in November 21, and my first 4 books in the short space of like 10 months. That's a lot as an indie author. So I really needed a break from publishing new volumes. And what I also realized, all my 4 books, the first 4, they were published in the Kindle format on Amazon. And the reason for that being that, well, I wanted my books, my poetry to be accessible to people. I live in Denmark, but my core audience really is overseas in the English speaking countries. So I wanted to have a way of getting my books easily accessible to that audience. And I also wanted to make it affordable, to do it at a reasonable price for my readers. So I published the 4 books in Kindle. But what I realized was, based on feedback from friends and family, was that they wanted to read physical books, print books, and especially poetry. They wanted to hold it in their hands. Um, and then I thought, well, maybe the time has come that I should, print the books. I mean, have them available in paperback format. So I talked about this with my sister Vatsala, who's also published author and my coach. And, we kind of set a goal for me for 2024, that I would, get my books out in paperback. Um,
Mm.
and here we come, January 2024, and I decide, all right, let's do this. So I went on Amazon KDP to find out, how to actually format a paperback because I'm an indie author. I do everything myself. And it's a nightmare. It's not easy. There are a lot of technical specifications, very specific layout requirements, and that you just have to adhere to. Otherwise, your book will not get approved for publishing. So,
Yeah.
I was on a steep learning curve, how to set up the manuscript, terms like trim size and margin and bleed. All right, I watched videos, I downloaded templates, and it was kind of difficult, but I finally mastered that, got that manuscript in place. And then the next challenge was, the cover, because I have a very definite cover, which is my mother's painting on all my books. Now, how do I, make that into a paperback cover? Because that's also very difficult if you don't have, graphic design tools. So after a lot of research, I found a format on KDP that would work. So I published my first paperback, or the first book, Pain, came out in paperback in April 24. And after that, it was easier, of course, doing the next 3, right? So the fourth one, or all 3 books, the remaining 3 came out in paperback in July 24. And so goal achieved. I got all 4 out. Um, and then after the summer, I decided, well, I'm actually ready now to publish a new volume.
Mm.
I wanted to break from the paperback formatting. And that's when I published my 5th and latest book called Friends. That was in September 24. So it's been quite a year or 2 years since last. Mm.
I love how enthusiastic you are. And to publish 5 books, these were poems you wrote as a young girl in the original series, Memoirs from Another Lifetime. But now you've got your 5th book, Friends. So tell us more about this one. What makes it different?
Absolutely. So, well, the first 3 books were, it was, well, pain, love, and desire. They were very distinct themes, and The fifth one, actually, when I was working on the fourth book, Soul, back in, when I was collecting those poems, I'd actually also collected another set on the theme of friendship. And I thought, well, now the time's come to publish that. And friendship for me as a person growing up, it was a very important theme. My father was a career diplomat. We moved around a lot, so friendships were very temporary. This is 40 years ago, like 50 years ago. So knowing that if you left a place, you wouldn't meet somebody again, because you couldn't afford to travel back then across the globe. So friends were important to me, and I always wanted a so-called best friend. This one person who I would be close to, who would understand me, I could share stuff with. And my late father never understood this best friend thing. He said, "What do you mean best friend? In groups of friends. I think it's a girl thing, this one very good friend."
Mm.
So I always wanted this best friend. And I also met this very lovely girl in Trinidad when I was living there. And, these poems were written at that time. And it was a very deep friendship, and it was also a very turbulent time in my life. So the poems in that book, they really reflect that. Both the youthfulness, because it's a very idealized picture of friendship, the emotions that are expressed, but it's also a complex range of emotions. Those poems, they go from friendship, love, devotion, kindness, all the way to hurt and pain and even jealousy. So and, and the thing is, that's what a friendship can also be. It's not a one dimensional thing. It's complex. There's a lot going on in a friendship or any relationship. And so some of the poems were that friendship, and then other friendships. So that was really the theme that I wanted to communicate, and the complexity of friendships in our lives.
Well, yeah, I can relate. My books are about a boy and his imaginary friend, who is a real demon. It's in his head, so I can relate, because a lot of it, um, I think, a lot of people, they really do in their life crave that one person, and they do tend to idolize that one person, and that's a whole dimension. Whether it's poetry or what now, the genre. There's now a genre all about that. It's actually subgenre of slice of life. A lot of Japanese stories explore friendships. Explore youth, and these are really popular. It's
Mm.
amazing. I'm not just saying these are a girls thing, but these are really popular, and it reaches across gender. Whereas, and I think your poetry does that as well. Whereas, a lot of genre writers write for their own genre. You seem to cross that barrier, and I think, obviously, the question is, now that you've done your fifth book, are you working on a sixth? And if so, is this part of a series?
Yes. So actually, when I then published Friends in September last year, 2024, I had an idea that, I would publish my next book this year in 2025. But unfortunately, this year is so challenging. My mother fell ill November last year and passed away suddenly and unexpectedly in January this year. And that was a huge shock to me, my sister, my family. And then subsequently, I have some very close family members who've had to grapple with very serious health issues and concerns this year. So, the thought of actually publishing poetry, I mean, I just didn't have the bandwidth or the energy or the emotional capacity for that, because, it's quite demanding to put together a book and so on. So I was just trying to show up in my daily life, my work responsibilities, and have this social media presence, just to keep things alive. But so my plans were shelved for the time being. But then actually, this autumn, I realized, all right, I think I'm ready to start thinking about the next book, and just start doing some of the work on it, but with no deadline, because it was hard to commit to any deadline even in my own head. um, so I started working on the sixth book, and initially I thought that it would be yet another collection of my poems written as a young girl, because there are still some left that haven't been published in the previous books. But then, when I read them, I just suddenly realized, no, I think actually the time has come to publish my latest poems, the ones that I've written now in recent years as an adult. So I looked at those poems and they kind of resonated with me. I felt, yes, the time has come to actually publish those. So I've started working on that. So my next volume, which I hope will come out in 2026, will be of my more mature poems, or recent poems, if you like. And it's going to be called Twin Flames.
Twin Flames. And these are what you've written as an adult. How do
Yes.
they differ? Yes, and what are the so there are going to be differences and similarities, right?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, and sorry, to answer your first question, they will also be a part of the
Yeah,
series Memories from Another
yeah,
Lifetime, because even though
yeah.
the first five books were written as a young girl or a young woman, I really feel that these recent poems, it's a natural progression. It's a part of the journey, and perhaps a fitting conclusion to the series, to say, all right, we started there and now we reached here. And um, so there are a lot of similarities. That was what was amazing when I was, typing my old poems, 5 years ago in 2020, that just started this whole process. I was amazed at how some of the emotions are very similar. They haven't really span of 40 years. I think it's the
It's-
universal human experience, right? Um,
yeah.
but at the same time, even though the emotions might be similar, the expression has really changed. Whereas my earlier poems, they're very raw, they're very direct. These are more mellow, more mature. They're still powerful and deep, but they're very subtle. The power comes in more subtly rather than in your face. And the interesting thing is, I've never rhymed in my poems, or at least I haven't tried to. But these, they actually quite a few of them, and there is rhyme in them. I mean, it wasn't intended to rhyme, but it's as if all those years later it came more naturally. The words, they kind of just fell into place. And Twin Flames is really about a spiritual journey. It's about, finding your true self through another person. We, if if we're lucky, we meet somebody in our lives who will actually awaken us to our own purpose, the soul's purpose in this lifetime, so we can be hopefully our best selves and be of service, to others in the highest possible way. So it's really, it can be read at several levels. But for me, it's really about a spiritual awakening, and a healing process, healing something within oneself, through that experience.
Now, I can relate. When through school, you got to do English, so and you got to do poetry. And I think a lot of people, when they first sit down to poetry, it's how well you can rhyme.
Mhm.
But later in life, you discover it's not how well you can rhyme; it's how well you can rhythm.
Mm.
And you've discovered how well you can rhythm. If you get my meaning,
Yes, absolutely, because the rhythm in itself has meaning and purpose.
it's the
So
heartbeat of poetry.
exactly, the heartbeat of poetry. And sometimes, you know even when I was, typing my old poems, I was looking at, where did I make the line breaks, where did I, because you could actually change the impact if you move a word down one line, or if you move it back up one line. The rhythm, the cadence, the meaning can shift, the emphasis. So it's true, can you actually get the rhythm? Can you get the right heartbeat? The impact, the sudden stops, or the flows? It's fascinating. I totally agree with you.
As I said, one of the most impactful things in the English language is actually the what do you call it again? You got your full stops, commas. You know what I mean? Just the words.
Yeah, yeah,
Between the words
yes,
is what I'm looking for. You know,
exactly. Yeah, and
the
and, and sometimes Dave,
formatting. Yeah,
formatting and layout,
yeah,
and sometimes David, the interesting thing is what was not said,
yeah.
what was not written, because you have to fill in the blanks. You have to read between the lines, which is why poetry or any book is an individual experience. Um,
Here's the thing: English language is designed around what not is said. It's called the implied language for a reason. Okay, it's also the scientific language for a reason because we have the most descriptions. We have well, except for snow. There's a few words we don't have, but like we're bland about snow. I admit that, but you know, we've got so many words to choose from. Like your standard dictionary is 110,000. You can get very technical and go up to as far as 200,000 words. And then you can start digging up old language if you really want to and pile on to about 350,000.
actually, I totally agree, which is why for me, writing poetry in English, it's there is so much to choose between. There's so many nuances. The same thing can be said in different ways, and
Yeah.
depending upon what you want to convey, how you want to impact. And you know, I'm actually quite fluent in Danish. I've lived here almost 40 years, right, which is more than half my life. And some people have asked me, "Won't you write it in Danish or translate it in Danish?" I said, "Well, there are two things to it. One is the cultural thing, because you don't just write English. There are cultural references implicit in your writing, or how you're viewing things, how you're communicating. That's one thing. I wasn't born and brought up here, so there is something I'm missing, even though I'm culturally immersed
Yeah.
here. But the other thing is the language, that
Mm.
it's just not as rich as English. And there's probably a way of saying the same thing in Danish, but I just don't know how,
And they'll
because
stare at you and say, "But we conquered them." Yeah, we conquered you back. We
that was the
got the we got.
Vikings. I mean, get over it. This is a long
Yeah,
time ago. They
yeah,
kind of progressed afterwards.
yeah. Now,
Absolutely.
one of the things a lot of writers don't have is a support network,
Hmm.
and you background information as we were talking before the show, and you actually brought up the fact that you have a supportive network. Well, you want to tell us a bit about your support and the mission behind. You brought up the mission behind your poetry as well.
Absolutely. So to start with my mission, the reason why I launched the blog, published the books, and still doing it is, I really want to make the voice of my younger self heard. Years back, 40 years ago, when I was writing them, my late father, he really did want to publish them. He even tried, traditional publishing, but it's so difficult. I think it's still difficult today. And so it didn't happen. But he was an enormous support for my poetry. And I'm just thinking, we're talking, let's say, like, yeah, all those years ago. I'm Indian, we're Indians, and for an Indian father back then to try to promote and publish his teenage daughter's work, and my poetry is very deep and perhaps at times even uncomfortable for certain audiences. The fact that he believed in them and he wanted to get them out there, he was a very progressive man. I'm eternally grateful that he really believed in it, and always encouraged me and my sister to do what we wanted, and to
Yeah,
believe in ourselves. He was a great support. My late mother, she was a poet herself, and an artist, and my poems resonated with her. And she always said, I really enjoy your poems, I love them. So she kind of gave me that support as well, that she believed in them. And finally, my older sister Vatsala, she helped me with all the technical stuff, which is quite difficult, as as an indie author, Amazon, so on. It's not easy. And to just have the courage to step out there, even helping me set up the blog. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but it is a lot. It's a lot. It's the whole vehicle. So these three family members, and then of course, my husband and my son, they are supportive. They appreciate what I'm trying to do, and they respect that. um and then finally, it's friends like you, David, people I've met on X, formerly Twitter, you know genuine members, lovely people of the writing community, who kind of support each other, encourage each other. This interview, people buying the books, leaving reviews, or posting, reposting, liking, commenting. I think even though we believe in our missions ourselves, I think we all need validation from time to time that there
We
is an
do.
audience. The voice does count, and it does resonate with people. So I think it's human to just feel the appreciation of strangers, quote unquote, where perhaps
Yeah,
your own circle of friends aren't able to give you because they don't quite get it. And that's fine. I mean, that was a bit difficult to understand initially, that there wasn't more support, amongst people who personally know me. But I was more than compensated by the lovely people I've met on social media, who've been extremely encouraging. Absolutely.
that is good. A lot of people don't understand psychological support as well as parental support, and but I think audience support is has for you in particular has been amazing. We've had the few shares over the years, a few people who, quite a few people by low standards, you know, for writing. I think a lot of people don't understand this, but you're lucky to reach 1,000 people. Most writers are lucky to
Mm.
reach 1,000 people, and for you to reach even the last video 200 plus people, that's a lot for poets, I believe, in particular. It's a once upon a time you dominated the world. You could publish a poetry book and instantly become a success. 10,000 copies would be ordered around the world. But that was a time also when only a handful of people could read or write properly in the first place. So
and
don't,
and also
uh,
publish, right? I mean, there's
yeah,
so much out there, the competition, the
yeah,
noise. And
well,
you're
yeah,
absolutely right, David. Poetry, I've learned the hard way, it's so difficult to market. Either you like it or you don't. Even if you like poetry, you like a certain type or you don't. And it's so personal, and it's
yeah.
individual taste, and it's like,
See,
you know
as a niche author, I understand because poetry in itself is a niche of writing, and I'm a science fantasy writer, and that is a very niche. It's a niche dominated 99% by Star Wars, and it's three, four, like there's 248 books, and they dominate the marketplace in
wow,
science fantasy. Okay, so you're never going to get in the top 100 because it's all
it's all
this
taken.
huge commercial product. Yeah, dominated by a huge commercial product with millions of fans who don't read anything else.
No. And then it's hard to get through, right? It's like, all right,
Yeah,
how do you wedge your
you
way in?
have the biggest audience in this is what people don't understand. They see the statistics, but the biggest audience is for the handful of material.
Hmm.
And for you to be so positive is amazing because I do have a lot of people who've been very nihilistic lately about the state of writing. But I'm an anti. See, I write what I write because I'm anti Orwellian. Okay, so I write the adult themed fantasy. I don't cut out the unpleasantness or the darker desires of and the realities.
Mm.
So I can relate to your poetry where you're talking about raw, because I write raw.
Mm.
I write in a very niche audience, however, because again, I'm anti Orwellian, which means my very nature is to be anti cookie cutter. The cookie cutter poetry, like the people who think poetry's in your hallmark card, you know?
Sometimes it's just, you can read poetry, like and with due respect, what I call like Hallmark poetry, right?
Yeah,
Nice, easy feelings, beautifully put, rhyme, rhythm, you got it. And it's like, all right, of course that has its place as well, but there have to be people like you and me who are hard hitting, who just say it as it is, who are not afraid to go into the darkness, bring it back and present it. I mean, we need that too to have a kind of a balance, right?
right.
And and to be honest, thank you for saying I'm so positive, and I'm it
You are. You're exuberant.
well, I'm trying, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're exuberant. Yeah,
But I've reached this stage, David, where when I started this off 5 years ago, I was even more like, hallelujah, here we come.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
I'm like, look, my
yeah.
poetry's out there. I'm putting myself out there. It's available. It's an offer. If you want it, you like it, please join me on my journey. If you don't, then peace be with you, and we'll just get on with our lives. I've kind of brought myself up there saying it's not
Yeah.
personal, and you're not for everyone, and just the way it is, right?
Unfortunately, yeah,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, it is what it is when you come across the people on X who want to foam at the mouth and express their outrage because you disagree with them on one tiny issue, which 80% of the world would say, I don't care. Get over yourself, you know? And I I think with poetry, right, they do call it the language of love, but because they don't understand love, they want to think about Byron or something like that. But there's a more love of self and that you are bringing forth. And I hope that, the audience you have appreciates, uh, how do you say, the unraveling, I think is the word that I would use, that you're taking this emotional bundle and unraveled it.
Mm. I've unpacked it to show you what's in there and saying, hey, have
Yeah,
a look.
yeah. And,
This is
and
what's in there, and this is what is in you and me and everybody else. It's just some of us might not want to see it, aren't ready to see it yet, or just don't want to see it, right? And that's
yeah,
fine. But here we are, here it is.
yeah. And
It's
you have a
universal.
Pacific, yeah. And do you have a Pacific message to share as we get to the end here?
Yes, well, two things really, which is, well, first of all, when people read my poetry, and I invite you, your viewers, to visit my blog. It's free. The link's in the description box. You can buy my books, they're free on Kindle Unlimited. But when you're reading those poems, to keep in mind they were written by a young girl, a teenager, a very young woman. So the emotions expressed, the way they're expressed, to keep that in mind, because I think that's also what makes them a bit unique and different than if I had written them now, knowing what I do
Yeah,
at this point in life. So that's one thing. And the second thing, and I'm sure you would concur with this, is that, viewers, readers, if you read a book, if you like it, please do leave a review, because it means a lot to any author, and not least to us indie authors who aren't known. It kind of helps other people to find good books as well. So, to to do that for an author that you like. I think that's really important.
Unfortunately, we're living in an age now where people want to do this professionally, and I tell people, don't, do not pay. They will find you. That they will, once you pay one, more and more will keep coming, and eventually you'll eventually be uncovered by Amazon or others. Um,
Absolutely.
it's
I I wouldn't even go
Buying
there.
reviews is
Mm.
always considered. No, it's not a modern thing. Buying reviews has always been considered a taboo by publishers.
I mean, I would say, I mean, and I don't mean to sound pretentious, but
Yeah,
I would be insulted if somebody offered to give me a review for payment. I'd say, what?
yeah.
Look, go read the poems, read the book, and then leave a
That's
review.
why they're
Uh,
there. They're there to
yeah,
be read.
exactly. We're putting it out there. I mean, all right. Well, to give this really silly anecdote, this is some time back, but another author,
Yeah,
you know, tried to post a review, uh, to me and say, I've done a review of your book. Will you buy my book? And
yeah.
and I didn't even bother to reply because I was like, I mean, what is this? I mean, first of all, he hadn't read the book. Okay, he just took my blurb, he took the back, the cover, he put stuff together, and I mean, I recognized my own language. I said, "Oh, that sounds like me." Then I asked him because, I mean, I knew what he'd done. I said, "You know
Yep.
what? That's strange because I can't see in the stats that anybody's bought my books recently." "Oh, I didn't buy
And
it. I
and
just did this up front." And I'm like, "No,
well,
no, I
yeah,
don't want that review, and I'm not going to buy your book." I mean, that's not how we do things.
yeah.
That's not
I've
how I
had
do
I
things.
if you're on X, you eventually come across the same people who are selling reviews, and I've come across a few of these guys. They always have a $12.95 or a $25 ebook about that was put together by AI, and they probably haven't even read it themselves.
Yeah, no, I would say a
No
review should
offense,
be
no
genuine.
offense,
Well, yeah,
no
each
offense
to
to you,
his.
but there's a lot of people from a particular region of the world near India, not always in India, who just have this since the opening up of Amazon. They've learnt a bit of English, and that seems to be the way they hustle in life. Is to put out a few books, the same books every year, and they think that they can convince people to buy them year in, year out. Um, there was probably a time where you could do that. I'm not saying all poetry is trash, but they do tend to target poetry, and
Mm,
and you did bring up that there's a lot of AI poetry out there,
mm.
um, and we do call it Hallmark poetry for a reason. No offense to Hallmark, they made an impact early in life when you're a kid, but most people don't read the cards anymore.
You don't even
They
get the
want,
cards anymore, I think. I'm not
yeah,
sure. Maybe they're online now. I haven't looked.
yeah. But I mean, a genuine poet. I remember this in high school where there was a genuine poet who did reach some measure of fame. But please, I think you understand this, but there's a lot of people who watch this who are writers, and when I interview a poet, I will get a lot of poets, who come, and I'm really hoping that poetry's something special,
Mm,
and don't take this as I'm kissing her or anything like that. It is a genuine thing that in writing, it's a genuine niche. It's the language of love. It is an emotional writing. Um,
mm.
and as was said before, it has a rhythm, it has a heartbeat, and as you mature, your style will stand out. But if you're going for AI, may God have mercy on your soul. Because you're going to ruin everything for the rest of us by
Yeah,
flooding the
I mean,
market.
it really, yes, it is. Yeah, I'm very mindful of what's happening around us, and it's scary at times because at times people, they're not even being critical. They're not even considering, is this actually a real person behind, or is
Yeah.
this just something that's been put together
I I'm not
artificially?
saying it's unique to one country, I'm just noticing there is that what they call the hyperbad growth
Mm,
market. And I don't know how much of that is to do with just because they relocated a big AI factory there or something, or it's just a sin now in the world where we're getting more and more AI books, and soon that will be um, soon that will be banned. Okay, Amazon is talking about this. Countries are talking about banning AI books,
mm.
which is good. Um, Honestly, I think AI should be the tool, not the product, not the producer.
Exactly, exactly.
If I want to spell check, these days spell checkers are all AI driven, and it's an excellent spell checker. But
mm,
as a creative tool, sure, AI movies, yeah, but I that's hard because it's creating something that can't be created.
mm.
There's going to be a lot of arguments about AI, and I think, but to replace someone like you with AI is sinful, because
Oh,
you got to have life experiences. You've got to. This is what poetry is. It's intent of expression. Whereas
yes,
just to sit there at a computer and say, what's trending today, and give me a poem about it is, you know, diminishing of the art.
it
Whereas,
is.
yeah.
It is. And also
And we've seen what
AI.
it's done to movies. Look at the CGI. It's not artist made. It doesn't have, and there's something in us that's recognizing that it's not human.
Mm,
If you understand, you ask most people today, is there a movie worth watching? I've asked many people this. Have you seen a movie worth watching? And a lot of people can't answer that. And again, you ask people, have you read a book that's worth reading? And they'll tell you, I haven't read a book in ages. So
mm.
part of the reason why I'm here is obviously to get people to read again. But I'm also spreading an anti-Orwellian message, a humanist message. And I think that's why we get along so well, is you have a humanist message. And I'm
Absolutely.
trying not to
It's
steal
our.
your thunder, but I, I'm trying to realize to the audience why I bring this stuff up, because you are putting a humanist message out there. And you do have a good audience, by the way. And is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
Well, just to say thank you so very, very much, David.
Yeah,
It's been wonderful connecting with you again.
same.
It was a very positive experience 2 years ago, and this has it's still the morning in Copenhagen, so I've started my day on a high note. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being here, and I hope your viewers will view this video, like, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe to David's channel. He's doing a great thing for fellow authors. So, and who knows, David, maybe 2 years down the line, we'll have something to talk about again.
Which would be good. And obviously, as I say, you're always welcome back. So
Thank
I'll
you.
just put you in the background and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Really appreciate it. And of course, all the links are in the description below. Uh, Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, of which I have two. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or scan the QR code on the screen. I know ex-viewers, yeah, sorry about that. There's still no description. Elon, get on it. Bye now.